Hi, everyone. If you can hear me, can I get a thumbs up, Christina? Wonderful. Thank you for joining us today, which is Monday, December 10th, 2018. My name is Cara Mccarty, and I am the director of the Sorority and Fraternity Life Office here at Cornell. You see the windows in my office behind me. They look very bright and sunny. There is snow on the ground, and it's a little bit cold, but we like the cheerfulness. We have a PowerPoint today that will go along with our presentation. You should be able to see it on your screen if you are watching on a computer. If you're just listening by phone, that's okay. Afterwards, I will send a recording of our time today, and it will include the PowerPoint. We are going to run through our slides. It will be a combination of staff and students, and we will leave time at the end for questions. We've only had a couple questions submitted in advance, but we'll take questions at the end via our chat box as well. I did send a message via the chat, so hopefully you were able to see that and see how you can access the chat box. So without any further ado, we'll begin. Just need to figure out how to advance my slides, which sometimes can be tricky. There we go. Okay. I've talked about some of this, but for logistics, you're on mute, and if you're just listening in, you don't necessarily need to be showing us yourself via the video, though we're happy to see you if you want to. We're just off to the side, the people who will be speaking, since the PowerPoint is taking the main focus. If you have questions earlier, you can type them in the chat box. We'll wait until there's a natural break to answer them. And as I said, it's being recorded, and we'll send the link via email to all of you. We'll also put it on our Facebook page, and I had shared that page with you when I sent a reminder email. So we'll make sure that every presenter introduces themselves when they start to talk, but it will be undergraduate affiliated student leaders, as well as myself, and the other staff members from our office are viewing as well. We call our office OSFL. Sometimes that's said OSFL. That's the Office of Sorority and Fraternity Life, and we're located on the 5th floor of Willard Street Hall, which is right across from the Cornell store. We wanted to start, one of the questions we received in advance was not knowing the difference between the three councils, and so I hope as a result of today's webinar, each of the students who talk about their council will explain a little bit more, but I wanted you to understand the overall landscape. We do have three councils. There's a logo you see there because it's often called Tri-Council. We have the Multicultural Greek and Fraternal Council, which goes by MGFC, currently 14 member organizations. The Interfraternity Council, which is often called IFC, which currently has 33 organizations. And the Panhellenic Council often goes by PHC or PAM, which has 13 member chapters. In the spring, it's about 30% of the campus community that participates in sorority or fraternity life. That's because we have a really heavy amount of new students who join in the spring. In the fall semester, transfer students and upper class students are able to join. So we have in the low, I'd say about 200 people who've joined in the fall, but not every organization participates in recruitment or intake in the fall. In the spring, it's about 4,000 to, I'd say 4,500 members of our sorority and fraternity community across all three councils. There is a fair amount of physical housing here on campus, and if you've driven around our campus, you've probably seen that. It's not like some campuses where all houses are in the same row. They kind of clump together in different areas on North Campus and on West Campus, and some of our groups, like IFC, actually break the chapters into North or West Campus for purposes of recruitment. Most of our IFC chapters have houses. All of our Panhellenic chapters have houses. One of our MGFC chapters have a house. Independent of that recognized house, people can live together in spaces on or off campus. I would point out that one unique thing about our facilities here is that some are university owned, but more are Alumni Corporation owned, so are privately owned. And most are in Ithaca, but some are in even the village of Cuda Heights, which is not Ithaca. So there are different municipalities amongst our housing. It is fairly common for students to go through recruitment their second semester, the first time they're allowed to, and then to live in a facility their sophomore year. Some organizations might ask for them to sign a commitment to live in for 2 years. And we've recently made a change here at the university that we're asking for officers to be upper class students and to also live in the facility. So we're trying to get more upper class students to live in the facility. Depending on the organization, sometimes Panhellenic has so many new members that they can't all fit in the house. And so there could be a lottery system or something like that. I will say that we do encourage all of our groups with houses to do their own internal housing process before the campus housing lottery happens, just so a student would know where they would live before that opportunity would happen. One thing that I want to make sure you're aware about that is very specific to IFC, but if someone joins IFC this spring, it's very likely that the IFC chapter is then going to ask that student to be on their meal plan. Cornell Dining is probably already a place that that student has a meal plan. And so Cornell Dining lets the student drop down their Cornell Dining meal plan, but there's a very strict deadline that's usually in early February. So if your son or daughter, we do have 2 co-ed groups, or 1 co-ed group rather, is interested in joining an IFC group, that's something to be mindful of. We have more information on our website about that too. A few things I want to make sure you're aware of. If you go to our website, which is greeks.cornell.edu, there is a list for all of our staff so you can see who advises which council and who you would contact. But if you just wanted to send an email message that would get to the office in general, we have an email address, which is greeks@cornell.edu. If you are ever wanting to report hazing, anyone with internet access can report an incident of hazing at hazing.cornell.edu. We do ask for as much information as possible and that those not be anonymous. We accept them if they're anonymous, but we can best investigate allegations if we have the most information possible. But also on that website, if you look at the violations link, you can see as far back as 2004, chapters, fraternities and sororities, but also a cappella groups, athletic teams who've been found responsible for hazing. Something else that is new this year, our president, Martha Pollock, in May of 2018, released some mandates. And these mandates will change the way sororities and fraternities function. They are also on a tab on our website if you'd like to learn more. But some of the things that are a result of the mandate is that recognized chapter houses aren't allowed to have hard alcohol at all at any time. By 2021, every facility will need to have a live-in advisor. This semester, we implemented mandatory trainings that students who wanted to join a fraternity or sorority in the spring had to attend. We are moving to at least 4 officers needing to be a junior or senior and live in the house. Ultimately, we're phasing that in. Chapters submit a new member plan so that can be reviewed and people know what the chapters are doing during recruitment, during the new member program. We are working to publish judicial histories for fraternities and sororities online. Right now, hazing incidents are online, but we'd like to make more judicial incidents available. So those are some resources. There's actually a webinar on our Facebook page about the mandates if you're very interested, but we're currently tracking our progress on our website too. That is something new. A question that people often have about joining a fraternity or sorority is how much does it cost? We do our best to post the fees on our website, and the link is right here. You can see on the slide. One thing to know is that many of our groups, but not all, they're afforded, any group who's recognized is afforded the privilege of bursar billing. Not all choose to use it, but you might have a son or daughter who joins an organization that then is going to put expenses on the bursar bill. So know that that might be coming, but there are other groups that don't bursar bill. So it would be something that you'd want your son or daughter to ask the specific fraternity or sorority. On our website, we also do have a list of what I'm calling unrecognized groups. And those are groups that do not operate under the auspices of our office. So they're not required to attend our trainings or to follow our rules and standards. Many of them have been closed as a result of a judicial decision. I do ask that you take some time to look at that in case you hear your son or daughter mention an organization that's unrecognized. I will make a disclaimer that business fraternities are not part of our office. They exist here and they are recognized by the campus activities office, which actually shares the hallway with us. And many students, can be members of both. But every now and again, we get a question about a business fraternity, and those currently aren't groups that our office works with. They work with our neighbors and partners in campus activities. Something else that we've had here for quite some time is what we call a 4-week maximum new member process. So that means whenever students are invited to join a fraternity or sorority, their intake or their new member process should not last longer than 4 weeks. That's the maximum. It doesn't have to be 4 weeks, but that's something that we communicate when they turn in their plans. The deadline for initiation for IFC and Panhellenic groups that participate in bid day this spring is March 3rd. So I know this print is small, but we are going to invite Christina, who is the Panhellenic president. She's sitting with Dee, who's the Panhellenic advisor, to unmute themselves and then kind of talk through the Panhellenic recruitment schedule and easy things that you'd like to know about Panhellenic recruitment as a parent who has a daughter who might be going through. Go ahead, Christina and Dee. You can't unmute? Okay, I can unmute.
Hi, my name is Christina. I'm currently president of the Panhellenic Council.
And my name's Dee. I'm the Panhellenic Council advisor.
So for Panhellenic recruitment, which is happening this January, you can see the schedule on the slide here. It basically consists of 4 or 5 days. It's 4 rounds in 5 days, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 4 rounds in 5 days. The first round is an open house that happens on January 15th, or no, January 16th and 17th. And the open house dinner provided Rho Gamma informational meeting happens on January 15th. Oh my gosh, not explaining that very well. So basically the meeting that happens on January 15th is for prospective women interested in going through recruitment. There's a mandatory meeting that they have with their Rho Gamma group. And their Rho Gamma group is basically kind of their group of peers that they'll be going through recruitment with. And their Rho Gamma group is led by 2 women already in sororities called Rho Gammas. They're both in different sororities, and their purpose throughout recruitment for prospective members is to kind of guide them through the process if, say, a prospective member is having a difficult time choosing between 2 chapters. Their Rho Gamma is supposed to be a real resource for them for how they want to go about their recruitment process. The first 2 days are open house. So one thing that's pretty unique about Panhellenic recruitment is we require all prospective members to visit all 13 of our chapters to kind of give every chapter a chance, see what everyone's about. And then on the second round, chapter experience and values, which is January 18th, they go to, I believe, 9 chapters, which we changed recently. So they go to 9 chapters. Philanthropy and service, they go to 5. Preference ceremony, they go to 2. So as the week goes on, they kind of go to fewer and fewer chapters as they kind of narrow down their choices and their options for what sorority they'd like to join. And then our bid day celebration, which we are revamping this year, and I'm personally very excited about, is on January 21st, which is a day before classes start. And the dorms for recruitment open on the 15th. Okay. So yeah, students will be able to move back into their dorms on January 15th so they could make the Rho Gamma meeting, which is mandatory to go through recruitment. Do you have anything that you want to add?
Yeah, so when students have completed our registration process, they will receive a link from me that details all of the commitments for that week and also allows them to request absences if they need to miss all of the week. So we have been fielding some questions, particularly around new member education on January 15th. So if your student is traveling that day and not able to make it back, we can make an exception there. They just need to let us know and fill out that form when they receive that. It is $55 to participate in our recruitment process. The last week before we close registration, there is a $15 late fee because we are trying to get people in early. To be able to participate in Panhellenic recruitment, your student had to attend bystander intervention training, which happened this semester. We will host a makeup for that. If your student needs that, they'll receive that information. And then there's also an online orientation process that students receive once they've completed the registration process. They'll get a link for that. It's a 45-minute, 60-minute online module that helps them understand more about what it means to be a member of a Panhellenic sorority, and also gives them information about what this process of selecting a sorority looks like.
All right. Thank you, Dee and Christina. We will, I'm sure, have some questions later at the end. Next, there we go. I am going to turn it over to Abraham and Angie, who are both here to represent MGFC and tell you a little bit more about how intake works. I'm going to have to unmute you both. All right, you are unmuted.
Hi.
I'm Abraham, my pronouns are he and his, and I'm the outgoing president of the Multicultural Greek and Fraternal Council. Thank you all for being here, or for being here virtually, or over the phone. So we have three kind of sub-councils that are under our larger council, as well as unaffiliated organizations, but they generally kind of break down into agent interest organizations, which are 4 of our organizations. Historically, currently 3 historically Black organizations and 2 going back to campus, as well as the African fraternalist group known as Malik Fraternity, and then and several Latinx-based organizations, sororities and fraternities. And so for agent interest groups, they will have Rust in the fall as well as in the spring, and they'll have informal opportunity for people who are interested to get to know members of the sororities and fraternities. And then from there, they'll go through different like Rust events and progressively get to a point where they're able to express their full interest in the organization. And then from there, go through either different like Rust process and then become a full-fledged member of the sorority or fraternity. For historically Black organizations, they are more based on the individual chapter. So, for example, in my chapter, Alpha Phi Alpha, we'll have an interest meeting almost immediately after we have our new member presentation, and this is where we're able to give the opportunity for people who are interested in the fraternity to get to know more about the brothers as well as the organization as a whole. And then from there, they'll to continue to show their interest by either like going to events or just getting to know the different brothers more so. And the same goes for the sororities and other chapters identify as historically Black as well. And the same system follows as well for the African fraternalist groups, where there'll be an interest meeting, and then from there they'll to continue to just talk more, learn more about the organization on their own, and again just meet and get to know more about the different brothers by going to the events, whether they're whether they're philanthropy, whether they're social. And Angie, I'll throw it to you for the Latinx organizations.
Yeah, so for a lot of Latinx organizations, they follow sort of the same method of having like informationals, informal sessions. For me, I'm a part of Sigma Lambda Upsilon, and what we do is we would host at least 2 informationals every semester, one at the beginning of the semester and one at the end of the semester. In the spring, it usually falls around after new member presentations, much like what Abraham said. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then the larger application process is where if after expressing interest, and then if everyone after expressing interest, and they're able to start going through the application process, where you'll have the initial acceptance by the person who runs the district of chapters, and then from there the application will be sent out. They will fill the application, and you get a recommendation from a brother who is currently on the yard, and then we sign anti-hazing agreements regularly throughout every single step of this process to ensure that everyone's conscious of what we're engaging in, make sure that we're only following the 4-week protocol set by the university as well as protocols set by our individual chapters. And then from that, it moves forward to they go through the different events and different steps been in the process of intake of new member development, and then the new member presentation occurs. And for most chapters, they happen in the spring semester, and for a few of them, they also happen in the fall. So that also change when someone's able to join. So for my chapter, you can really only join the sophomore because we only have our new member presentation. We don't have our intake in the fall. But as for Andy's chapter, because they do intake in the spring, that means you can come in as a freshman and come in as a second semester freshman into the organization.
Okay, thank you both. I will add that much like we've talked about the trainings, there will be a recorded training that will make sure those going through the intake process receive as well. It's a training about bystander intervention, but also knowing a lot of resources for the university. I'm sure there'll be some questions at the end too. And next, I can move my slide, which seems to be my challenge today. I'm going to let Max, once I unmute him, walk you through what the Interfraternity Council recruitment process is like.
Hi, so I'm Max, the IFC Vice President of Recruitment for the upcoming recruitment process. So Interfraternity Council recruitment looks a little different than MGFC and Panhellenic recruitment. So we start on Tuesday 15th. Obviously, as Christina mentioned, residence halls open at 9 a.m. that day. So your child will have the opportunity to move into the residence hall at that time. The next thing that they'll attend is the night of January 15th at an event called Meet the Greeks. Meet the Greeks is an opportunity for students to all the chapters. They'll be able to table, so your student is able to meet any chapter they want to in an open space. Next day we start at 9 a.m. So over the course of this semester, if people interested in IFC recruitment were required to attend 2 mandatory events. They were a bystander intervention training meeting and a IFC orientation meeting. If they were not able to attend these in the fall semester, they'll have the opportunity this morning to make that up. Afterwards, they're required to attend a mandatory recruitment review session before recruitment officially kicks off. So this will all occur on the morning of January 16th. For the next couple of days after that, they have the opportunity to participate in open houses. Again, as Cara mentioned earlier, the Greek system, the IFC system, is split into basically the two sides of campus, North Campus and West Campus. And then, so here's an opportunity for potential new members to go to basically any chapter that they want during predefined times. So they're able to basically go anywhere they want. Chapters will host open houses. Brothers will be obviously there to meet. Will be there to meet your potential new members. Food will often be served. So there's 2 days of this, and next there's contacts. So the way contacts works is that it is an opportunity for chapters to express interest in continuing recruitment with potential new members. How this works is there'll be a predefined time where a potential new member has to be within their dormitory or within their residence. At this time, members of organizations will be able to enter their residence halls and be able to go and basically knock on the door and tell a potential member that they're still interested in having them participate in recruitment. So they want to keep coming them around. Often they'll host events later in the week that they'll invite them to during this time. After this, there is a couple more days of open houses just after the first contacts, depending on how people move through this, what their preferences were. Now they have the opportunity to go back and either go to the same places they've been going to or try different houses for open houses, then a second round of contacts, and then a day of invite only events. So this will be a day basically open where chapters have the opportunity to host invite only events. So they can take the members that they're interested in and host some type of event either on or off campus. And then on January 21st, which is the day before classes start, we have midnight. So again, this works very similar to contacts, where your first student will be in the residence hall and chapters will be opportunity to enter the residence halls and officially extend them a bid. And then they have to have the bid signed by the following Sunday, January 27th, and then there's a 4-week intake process after that. Obviously, recruitment is free for students. And yeah, there's not much else. So if your student or if your child is interested in obviously recruitment, make sure they're back on campus by January 15th. If that's not possible, it's also possible to come later in the week, although that might hinder them in the recruitment process. But it is still possible to come later in the week after that. Yeah, that's about all.
Okay, thank you, Max.
Thank you.
We have a couple more slides and then I'll open it for questions, and I know we've gotten a couple in the chat box already. If you haven't already, which maybe some of you have, but I refer you to these websites. Our office has a general website at greeks.cornell.edu, but then each of our councils also has their own additional website. And I find the council websites to have a lot of specific information, including their schedule and some frequently asked questions about recruitment. So those are listed right here. And like I said, you will get this PowerPoint at the end, so you can mark those down too. And we're also on social media. I don't know which social medias you all are on, but you can find us on Facebook or on Instagram or on Snapchat or Twitter, not so much lately. But our office has them on Facebook and Instagram, and then undergraduate student councils have a variety as well. I think that personally it's a good way to stay updated about information. For example, we were putting information about a lot of the required trainings on our office pages, and we'll highlight different organizations from time to time, or when the Greek community has events, or when there are campus-wide events of interest for the Greek community, we post them there. So if you participate in social media, that's an easy follow for us. And now it's time for questions. I just saw another linking chat. So I think the first one was suggestions for what potential new members for Panhellenic recruitment should wear each day. And I need to unmute you. All right, you have the floor, Christina. D.
Okay, so the dress code for Panhellenic recruitment, on the first 2 days, your student will be given a Panhellenic t-shirt. It's a very simple t-shirt. It'll just say Cornell Panhellenic, and they have to wear those t-shirts for the first 2 days. On the sister side, they will also be given t-shirts, and the purpose of that is we really want to de-emphasize about, you know, the kind of frills around sorority recruitment, and really want to make it about getting to know the sisters and getting to know your students. That being said, for the following days, the next 2 days, or next 2 rounds rather, I would say are probably a bit more business casual. You don't have to dress to the nines, but, you know, presentable, maybe jeans and a sweater. And also, most important thing is just make sure your student is warm. It's really, really cold throughout our recruitment process, and more than anything else, prioritize just like staying warm. And probably for the last day, I would say it's, people tend to dress up a little more. It's, I would say, like cocktail dress is pretty appropriate. But again, more than anything else, stay warm because you are outside a lot during recruitment.
We would also add that layers are encouraged because a lot of the houses do get pretty warm, to try to keep them warm for students, and so they sometimes get a little too hot. So having layers that that you can take off is also important. And when it comes to that last day, really just something that, like Christina had said, like cocktail attire, so that could include pants if your student chooses to wear pants instead of a dress. All is accepted, and we just want people to feel comfortable because the focus of the rounds really should be on the conversations that they're having.
It's also really common for students to, if they want to wear a dress or a skirt, they'll wear their dress or a skirt and then they'll throw on sweatpants underneath. And like 1 minute before entering the chapter, they'll just like take off the sweatpants and throw them in their backpack. So that's another option as well.
Yeah, we call it spring recruitment, which I often think is a bit of a misnomer because it's the winter when it happens. It's just the spring semester. The second part of that question is one we get fairly often too, and it is, does everyone who participates in sorority recruitment receive a bid to join a sorority?
The answer to that, the easy answer to that question is no. However, we generally we don't choose not to give away bids. A lot of students end up self-selecting out of our process. So as long as, we like to say, as long as you play by the rules, you typically get a bid. So, but sometimes people choose not to write down or rank all houses. So when students get a little bit more choosy in their choices, sometimes that means that you won't get a bid. But if you keep an open mind and rank all of our houses every day, then there's no reason you wouldn't receive a bid by the end. And we could explain more of that if there's still more questions. But
yeah, I mean, we want to be very honest about the fact that there's not a guaranteed bid, but we do encourage students. Sometimes they come in thinking, I really want to be an Alpha Alpha Alpha, which is a name I just made up. It doesn't actually exist here. And then if Alpha 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 doesn't invite them back, they might say, well, that's it, I'm going to leave the process, which is completely their right, but they haven't given the other 12 sororities an opportunity by continuing through the process to visit their houses. A lot of sorority questions here from Panhellenic. Are the housing costs for year-round living, meaning can students live in sororities over the summer for the prices listed? I will answer, and then I'll ask Dee and Christina to chime in, but my experience here, many of the sorority houses, all but one, are actually alumni owned, and so it's up to them what to do, but the majority of them, the vast majority of them, close for the summer, so that's typically not an option.
yeah, I would echo that. Most of them do not, as far as I know, don't allow summer occupants.
I will say, when I was talking about presidential reform, I did mention that by 2021, all of our recognized fraternity or sorority houses will have to have live-in advisors, but all of the Panhellenic chapter houses currently do have house directors or house moms or house parents, or they call them different things, but that's already an existing program within those houses. Here's another question we get a lot too. Are letters of recommendation from alumni helpful in the sorority recruitment process?
I would say kind of from the student perspective and having kind of been on the other side of sorority recruitment here, letters of recommendation don't hurt, but I also wouldn't say that they particularly help in any way. I think more than anything else, the women in our chapters are just really interested in getting to know your student. Yeah, a letter of recommendation doesn't hurt, but I also wouldn't say particularly helps either. Would you say that's like accurate?
Yeah, they're absolutely not required. Our office does not accept them. If someone chooses to submit them, they need to submit them directly to the chapters. But I would say they're very underutilized here at Cornell, and our students aren't necessarily taking the extra step of investigating that further. So I don't know that it's worth the time to do it. I think that if your student is very prepared for their conversations and how to talk about themselves, then there's no real reason for a letter of recommendation. They're just not something that is used by our students here.
Are there any additional questions from those who are viewing the webinar? I do want to make sure one of the mandates from President Pollock says that substantiated acts of hazing will result in a loss of recognition for a fraternity or sorority. If you view our website, you will see that there are organizations that have been closed as recently as this semester. And so it's something we take very seriously. And, you know, as guardians or parents, we know that you are eyes and ears. We've been fighting very hard to work on hazing here, not just in fraternities and sororities, but across clubs and organizations. And so if you have concerns, we encourage you to contact our office or to fill out a report. I'll give another minute or so, but it's okay if we end early, especially for the students as finals are happening. I'm sure they wouldn't mind some extra time. please do know that the staff in our office are here. December 24th until about January 2nd, Cornell is closed, but we're here otherwise for emails or for phone calls if questions come up. Okay. Well, I won't belabor it if there are no additional questions. Oh, well, thank you. Thanks to everyone who participated. We will post this, and if you think of something later, feel free to let us know. We hope this has been helpful for you as you prepare your son or daughter to participate in recruitment or intake here at Cornell, and we're always around if you think of questions later. Thank you so much to all the student participants. And I'm going to end the recording. We're going to sign off from beautiful Ithaca, New York, and thanks for joining us today.